Imagine this for a second. The smartphone sitting next to you, the same one buzzing with notifications, might someday help detect earthquakes faster than traditional seismic stations. It sounds wild, but research teams around the world have already shown it's possible. Tiny components inside your phone, the accelerometer, gyroscope, and motion sensors, can pick up the earliest tremors of an earthquake long before you feel them. In 2025, researchers from the University of Bergamo, the GFZ Helmholtz Centre for Geosciences, and the European Mediterranean Seismological Centre published a breakthrough study demonstrating that crowdsourced smartphone motion data can produce incredibly detailed ground shaking maps. These maps reveal which neighborhoods shake harder, which shake less, and how waves move across a region during an earthquake. And here's the surprising part: in many cases, these maps can show a level of detail that traditional networks, even very good ones, simply cannot capture. Because smartphones outnumber seismometers by thousands to one, the concept builds on work already underway. Since 2013, a global citizen science initiative known as Earthquake Network has gathered data from more than 20 million volunteers. Whenever the accelerometer in a participating phone detects sudden consistent movement, especially when the phone is stationary and plugged in, it sends a signal to a central server. If many phones in the same area register a similar jolt within a short time window, the system checks whether the pattern matches what you'd expect from seismic waves. When it does, an alert can go out to nearby phones, often seconds before the strongest shaking arrives, and those seconds matter. They can be enough time to duck under a table, stop a train, shut down a gas valve, or pause a surgery in progress. In controlled laboratory tests, researchers placed various mid-range smartphones on shake tables to see how well they could distinguish normal human activity from real earthquake motion. The results were impressive. When paired with a good algorithm, smartphones could reliably identify seismic signatures. But the real breakthrough came from analyzing thousands of phone signals during live seismic events, like those around the Campi Flegrei volcanic region in Italy. The researchers developed statistical techniques to filter out the noise introduced by buildings, different phone models, and background vibrations. Once cleaned, the remaining data revealed the true ground motion, effectively turning phones into a massive, improvised seismic array. This approach has several advantages. Traditional seismic stations are expensive and spaced far apart, sometimes miles from one another. Smartphones, on the other hand, are everywhere, in pockets, on desks, in cafes, on bedside tables. That density allows for hyperlocal detection. You could see how much more one block should compare to the next. This kind of detail can dramatically improve earthquake hazard assessment, urban planning, and emergency response, of course. Smartphone sensors aren't perfect. One phone alone is too noisy to trust. Different buildings amplify shaking differently. Sensors vary between models. People move their phones accidentally, but when thousands of phones trigger within seconds, the pattern becomes clear and incredibly powerful. Several technical studies support this idea. One experiment achieved nearly 97% accuracy in identifying earthquakes versus false alarms using smartphone sensor networks. In that same study, about 61.9% of all significant quakes triggered phone alerts before the strongest shaking, known as peak ground acceleration, arrived for early warning. That's a huge success rate considering this relies on devices never intended to act as seismometers. And smartphone-based alerts aren't limited to research labs. Google's Android earthquake alert system demonstrated the real-world viability of the approach. During earthquakes in California, Greece, and Turkey, where early alerts were successfully delivered to residents, in several cases, people received warnings several seconds before the shaking reached them, enough to take action. So what does the future look like? Imagine a city at dawn, quiet streets, streetlights flickering off, and thousands of apartments, offices, and shops. Phones lie still on tables and nightstands. With no one touching them, those accelerometers sit in a calm, steady state. Then, deep underground, a fault begins to slip. A wave of motion reaches the first neighborhood. 5 phones jolt, then 20, then 50. Within a second, the network recognizes a pattern. Another second later, an alert is on its way to surrounding neighborhoods before the strongest shaking rolls in. That future isn't science fiction. The tools already exist. The sensors are already in your pocket. And as these systems improve, with better algorithms, more participating phones, and stronger modeling, earthquake detection may become something we all participate in every day, without even noticing. Technology isn't just about faster processors or sharper screens. Sometimes it's about turning ordinary devices into extraordinary tools, tools that can save lives. And in the case of smartphones and earthquakes, we're already closer than most people realize.